Okay. Hello everybody, welcome back to my channel and for a new episode on Meet and Greet. And in this episode I'm really excited to meet with our seniors here, Scott and Kelly, along with my wife Veronika. Today we are meeting them to understand how these couples started to just leave everything and decide to travel around the world. Really excited to share their story, their perspective, and listen and get inspired and share it with you guys. So the mic all yours.
I'm Kelly Dixon. I met this man about 3.5 years ago on Match.com. On our first date, we started talking about, in the U.S., yes, we started talking about traveling around the world, and last summer it happened. We had life-changing events that made us look hard at our life, and we sold his home in Los Angeles where we both lived, and it took us about 5 months to sell everything, pack, plan, and leave town on December 10th, 2019. So we've been on the road 7 months, experiencing COVID in the middle of our world travel plans.
Decision that you took, it's a hard decision to decide and travel during the pandemic. And I think that when the time you went and traveled, it wasn't that chaotic yet. But what's your viewpoint on after deciding to travel and everything? What's your viewpoint on these times? And what's your experience during traveling during this time, basically? Yeah.
Well, we really struggled on whether to go back to the U.S. when the State Department called for all U.S. citizens to go home who were traveling abroad. We realized we didn't have a house to go back to, and where would we go back? The COVID rates were going up so quickly, and at the time we slowed down in Brazil. Their numbers were very low, so we decided to stay. That changed, and that's how we got to Turkey, but we felt relatively safe for the majority of that time until really just a month or two ago when Brazil became newsworthy every day about the infection going crazy. So we came to Turkey, we met you, and we have started to resume our world travel plans again on a very much slower pace.
Well, I'm Scott Ogden, and had this dream of traveling for many years. I did travel a lot in my 20s. I'm 66 right now. And this opportunity came up. A little job change happened last summer. And I took one look at Kelly and said, why don't we go around the world? And she said, yes. I had to ask her 5 times because she answered so quickly. I didn't think that she really understood what she was agreeing to, but she kept on saying yes. And so I said, all right, let's do it. So we had my family house that I raised my children in, and we said we don't need this big house, and Los Angeles was expensive, and our health is good, so let's go off on an adventure. So as Kelly mentioned, we sold the house, got rid of 20-some years of things, which was a process in itself. It's amazing how owning things kind of weight you down, and everything you own, especially over years, has a memory. So when you let go of it, you let go of a memory. So it was actually very kind of traumatic and somewhat painful, and yet freeing at the same time. And we actually had a lot of support from my children and from friends to do this. And so we picked a day. It was literally the day after the house closed. So we headed out on December 10th towards Mexico. Our idea is to follow the sun. We are packing very, very lightly. We have 2 backpacks and 2 carry-ons, and that's it. And we plan on being gone for a while, 2-3 years maybe.
Next couple of years, yeah.
At least, if not, the longer we travel, the more we're just like, let's just keep. We don't want to stop, and we don't. Yeah, we want to keep going. And I think one of the keys to that is that we are big believers in slow travel, that we don't move from place to place quickly. I mean, you might occasionally find ourselves in a place for a couple days, but I don't know if that's ever only happened once, I think. But mostly we stay, let's say, minimum 2 weeks in a city, and we think in a country minimum a month. And then Brazil, we were going to be there 2 or 3 weeks, and we were there almost 5 months, but that was because of COVID. We've been in Istanbul for almost 3 weeks, and we got another month and a half we're going to explore outside of Istanbul. And then this is such a very interesting time because you can't just travel where you want to go. Exactly. And so I do a lot of research, and things change constantly, and we got to see where we're available to go. As being U.S. citizens traveling around the world, coming from other countries is an odd place to be too, because some countries say no U.S. citizens, but I think what they think about is U.S. citizens coming from the U.S. And since we're like U.S. citizens coming from Brazil or from Turkey, it adds another wrinkle. And so we have to really research what our possibilities is. The key is we don't have a lot of stuff, so we don't have a lot of warm weather. So we try to pretty much follow the summers and springs and falls and stay away from winter time. So that's kind of our approach. Awesome. And from here, we don't know where we're going. We will see what's available once it gets cold.
Okay, so I also want to ask you a question. What is your advice that you can give to other people who are afraid to leave their comfort zone, who maybe dream to travel, but they don't know how to, they're not so brave to sell everything, to start a new life, to move to new countries. So what's the advice you can give them, and how did you overcome this fear if you had it? And yeah.
Scott traveled a lot more in his younger years, so I spent a lot of time thinking about a lifestyle like this and not really knowing how to do it. And then meeting Scott, someone who's very comfortable with traveling, made it a lot easier. But we actually live a lot less expensively on the road than we did in Los Angeles. Yeah. So we set a budget, we track expenses, we live very comfortably for a lot less outside of the U.S. Flights, for instance, are much less expensive. We can fly to a different country for less than $100 in some instances. Food and beverage, are a lot, half, I would say, than what we are used to spending in Los Angeles. So that's a different comparison because Los Angeles is an expensive city to live in. But we were able to take an investment off of Scott's house and put it in the market and live on interest, and his daughters are taken care of and with their school being paid for. So when you sell your car and your house and you get rid of payments, it makes it a lot easier. So it's a bit of a stepping off the cliff sort of feeling, and yet nothing has ever felt more freeing, more natural, more fun, more adventurous, and it's actually a really unique time to be traveling.
I think the key to travel like we do, and I've kind of mentioned it before, is that the way to keep expenses under control is to travel slowly and to less flights, less moving around, getting comfortable in a place. Find an Airbnb, and if you stay, for instance, in Airbnb longer, you tend to get more discounts. We pretty much always have a kitchen, so where possible, we love to cook. Some places it's cheaper to go out, but certainly like breakfast, we pretty much always have our own breakfast, and we don't have to go out early in the morning for breakfast. But to go slow, you get to know the rhythm, and you're not going out every day necessarily. We have days that we stay home all day. And to not have that pressure to go out, it also allows you not to become exhausted. And we've found after 7 months that we have tons of energy and looking forward to being out for easily a few more years because we're not being exhausted.
Well, but I think the biggest difference between travel and vacation is we don't do a lot of white tablecloth restaurants. We're not splurging. These are regular meals for us. So we're perfectly happy with a sandwich and a salad for lunch, and we spend a little bit of money on some signature cocktails, but we might share an entree for dinner and get a salad and a dessert and be completely fine with that. So we always seem to find the greatest restaurants at a really reasonable price, but we don't do the Michelin tour.
Yeah. So, and as far as getting the nerve to do this, I don't know what that takes. I think it's always been in my DNA, so to speak, to want to do this, and then Kelly too.
Like to.
Yeah, so I guess if you have it, if you have it in you, it's something you can do.
Mm-hmm.
So does she mentioned about reading books? Does it affect that change your mind?
Yeah.
Well, there's our Bible for sure is called Vagabonding by Ralph Potts.
Yeah.
And it's a wonderful book to read, and
very inspirational.
Very inspirational, and I've read it several times, and it's a good place to start. Read that, and if it makes sense for you, there's some real truth to that.
Then stop dreaming and just
But
put a plan in action.
And the world we're finding a very friendly place.
Yeah.
I mean, we met both of you, and we love meeting new people, and we love exploring and opening ourselves up, and we honestly haven't been lonely. In fact, it's an amazingly easy time to travel right now. I mean, the COVID, of course, has its own drawbacks, but at the same time, through the internet and through apps on your phone, it's incredible. You can get so much information from translation apps, your currency apps, your Google Maps, your Google Maps to like where's the best restaurant near you. It's to all these travel blogs like you mentioned.
Yeah.
There's just so much information out there. It almost feels like you're cheating.
Yeah.
And it's cheap to stay in touch with your family on other places of the world. You get WhatsApp, you call on WhatsApp, it's free. There's no charge. So we make phone calls to our friends all the time, and doesn't cost a penny. It's amazing how the tools out there are making it easier and easier to travel. You don't feel far away from anybody. You're always in contact. And then you make friends, and I guarantee you we will be in touch, and who knows where we'll see each other again. Let's do it.
But those are the best restaurant referrals, our best next destination referrals. Those tips have been the most valuable from people that we meet, locals, and don't go here, do this instead. That's too expensive, try this town instead. We're very flexible on the road. We try to put a plan in place. It doesn't always work out that way. We always go to plan B, C, or D.
You adjust.
You adjust, you go with the flow. If it doesn't work out, you go home and take a nap. And start over the next day.
Cool. Okay, I have a question for you guys. So, do you regret that you didn't travel when you were young, or not? Or do you think it's better actually to just keep the life, the rhythm of working, and just, make money and invest, and then after you are older enough, then you travel? Do you regret that you didn't travel? I mean, I'm not talking about Scott, but I mean, because he already did it, but about you, like, do you feel this regret that you didn't do it earlier, but you're glad that you made it now? But do you advise people to travel earlier or just wait? What do you think?
I don't regret any decision that I made in life. I really don't. I was married at 20. I was married for 33 years to a great guy. I did travel to Europe.
Not me.
You're a great guy. I traveled to Europe and Mexico and Canada, but that was my limited experience of the world. And I was always hungry to know about other cultures and other countries. So for me, the timing was just right for me to meet Scott in my 50s, in my late 50s, and for us to plan this together very, very early in our relationship is just, for me, the way it was supposed to be for me. And the fact that Scott had some travel experience when he was younger, a bit of a hippie, and willing to do some camping and some beach sleeping and things like that. He got that out of his system, and I don't have to do that with him now. You know, we have certain things that we really want and need to be comfortable now at, late 50s, early, mid 60s for him. And, we need a king-size bed, and we don't always have a kitchen, but there's certain things we don't share. We don't sleep in hostels. We don't share bathrooms, down the hall, that sort of thing. So there's a level of comfort that we always seems to have, no matter where we travel. And I'm glad that we're doing that together. Scott's very good at research, and he knows where he wants to go and where he wants, our next stop to be. It doesn't always work out that way, like we said, but then we kind of decide together what makes sense on the road, and it changes. But for the most part, this time in my life, in my career, being able to take a break just seemed more natural to me. So no regrets. This is the life that I've been dreaming about for a long time, and finally met the man to do it with. So yeah, that's a gift.
I just like to add that there's two things. One is where the world is right now. There's an amazing opportunities for people to become what they call digital nomads. Yeah. That the freedom and the coronavirus has actually accelerated this. Yeah. That I think there's incredible opportunities probably going to come out over the next, from now on, I do believe, to give people the freedom not to be in a certain situation where you're locked into showing up to work, driving to work, whatever you do, commute to work. And you can actually expand your resources and your horizons and work other places, not only in your time zone, but other countries. And I think this is newish, and will only grow. And the second thing I think is a bigger picture item for myself, and I feel like we all need to move to the place where we're not ruled by fear, and that within ourselves, if we have an idea, a vision of where we'd like to be, and if just fear holds you back, I feel like it's now an opportunity that I would encourage everybody to, don't be ruled by fear. And go out into the world with an open heart and an open mind, and the world will embrace you. That's our experience, without a doubt.
Yeah, but I think COVID has given everybody a little bit of a shove off of our comfort zone, off of our track that we thought was going to provide for us always. That, now we're out in the world, we're looking at things in a different way. We're looking at making a living in a different way. We're looking at travel and safety in a different way. People that thought they were going to have an income for the next foreseeable future might have had their world rocked about safety and security. And I think there's no better time to rethink lifestyles and to rethink, say, the next, 10 years of your life. What does that look like? How is the world going to change? How are we all going to be doing business in a different way? It's really a beautiful time to make any sort of big adjustments in lifestyle changes now. It's very comfortable and natural to do that.
I think the biggest lifestyle change is to lighten up, not have so many things, not to focus on getting more and more things.
And if you can, it's going to get better just by letting go.
By owning less and having less, that frees you up to do other things. It's get away from that trap of having to own lots of things and have a bunch of new things. The freedom is amazing. It's all about freedom.
So another question for you guys is that you spend every day together 24/7. You go to explore together. You like meet people also together. And I wanted to ask, do you ever get tired of each other, or like do you want to spend some time separately, and do you have arguments? So what's your advice for couples who also decide to travel together long term, or who already travel, and how do you deal with being together all the time?
This one.
Being such an easy guy to get along with is helpful.
You're talking about it.
Well, first of all, we didn't spend 100% of our time together when we were back in Los Angeles. So we've done incredibly well. Like, I'm surprised that we do so well together, but we do spend a lot of time. We do absolutely enjoy our time apart. And especially during COVID, we would go to really separate ends of the house. And I would work on a project and he would work on a project. You have to have separate time apart because traveling can be stressful. We have disagreements about certain things that I have to address immediately because I just like, let's get this off the table. And it's part of travel, but you have to understand that you're going to disagree about some things, and you need time apart, and it's critical for anybody, whether they're a couple or they just are travel buddies together. You have to take breaks, for sure. And you?
What?
Do you have something to say on that subject?
Yeah, I still haven't figured it out, but it just seems to work.
Yeah. Surprisingly. Like,
I don't know why.
Yeah.
I feel lucky.
Well, we both have different roles. Scott's, like I said, very much the research person. He knows where he wants to go, and he knows he is the nerd. He is the travel nerd. I'm much more laid back and easier to get along with.
I'm like you, Kelly.
Yeah.
She's the nerd, and I'm the...
Yeah, and I will go along to a point as long as I understand, what's going on and when things are going smoothly. Sometimes when we get turned around or something gets canceled and we need to go to plan B, he hangs on to plan A for a little bit longer, and I'm like, no, it's, it's time to make a joint decision together. So, every now and then we rein each other in and just say, look, we need to sit down and rethink our plan here. But we actually do that really well. I think both of us appreciate the position that we're in so much that even when things get a little too close for comfort, or we've just gotten too tired, or I'm hungry, usually it's me, or somebody's had an extra cocktail or something, we can understand where we are and to step away, check you in the morning kind of thing. And but we've learned, we definitely learn all the time about each other.
I think part of it, too, is traveling slow takes a lot of pressure off. If you don't have a constant... If you keep constant moving around, constant have to do this today,
Squeeze
that
it
tomorrow,
in.
squeeze it in. Airports. I mean, every time we fly somewhere, I get stressed. It's always a stressful day to fly. Always.
You're the nerd. You're the
Well,
researcher.
it's
You have to be
yeah,
nerd
but
to
it's
fly.
like things. Those are the days that things can go wrong, and then you get nervous because you're going to say to a new country with new phone. You got to get a SIM card. You got to get what's the
currency.
languages, the currency. It's always a stressful time, and so if you don't have to do that too often, if you do that once a month or once every 6 weeks, that alone takes away a lot of the stress. So I think the idea of slowing down, less is more, is the key.
Okay, so I have a question for you guys. It's related to the first question we started off the interview with, and I want your advice on how people can really start traveling. And by this, I mean that how a person in their 20s can start off saving money, investing money, so they can later on achieve that dream and travel around the world. So can you give us some of your advice and tips around that?
I mean, I traveled when I was in my 20s, and now I'm in my 60s, and it definitely is traveling different now, because we did manage to, I owned a house, I sold the house, I made some money on that. I'm on Social Security, so I get a little check every month. So that all.
But in your 20s, you traveled
but in the 20s,
with no
it
money.
wasn't. So, but the key, I mean, what's the same is that you travel without a lot of wants. You don't need much. If you really break it down, you need food every day and a place to sleep.
So it's about making a well-planned budget, so you can.
I think keeping a budget. We have a budget. We have a budget that we do we have a daily budget and a monthly budget, but we think of it in terms of a daily budget. And if we're spending more on a place to stay, we eat less, basically.
Well,
or some days is expensive, and then we make a lot less expensive. And I think another huge important thing to do is to travel to cheap countries. Mm-hmm. I think that's almost the most important. Like I would say probably the best place to start traveling is Asia. It's inexpensive. Once you get there, you can live on so little in Asia. And I would say also with your advice would be, you don't have to leave for around the world. You could just go for a month. But I would say go more than a couple weeks, because you have to get out of your tourist mindset and into a traveler mindset. And that is one of just like letting things just be into the rhythm of wherever you're at. And certainly Asia, like I said, you can sleep and eat for very, very little and go for a very long time.
Well, I think now, too, with everybody sort of working remote, it's given everybody a focus on how they can work from home, which is new to most of us. I started looking at opportunities like teaching English as a second language online. Those certification programs, you can take the training in a relatively short amount of time. But I would say find out a way to make a living on the road. Some people house sit, some people nanny, some people blog and are able to earn a living in that way, teaching English. There's so many opportunities. There's certainly volunteer organizations, but you're tied to a commitment with a certain organization to be able to do that. But I think now more than ever, there are blogs specific to earning a living wherever you are, and to be able to travel. If you're a writer or if you are a photographer, there's so many different ways. If you're living and traveling, we take buses now. We do some inexpensive travel transportation choices that we might not normally make. We certainly wouldn't make those choices if we were vacationing, because you need to move faster. But I think it's better for the environment. It's certainly, I think we took a bus trip in Mexico that cost us $9, and I think it was a 2-hour bus ride. So it's crazy how surprisingly inexpensive transportation is once you start traveling around the world. But try to make a living at whatever you love doing, editing, writing, whatever that is. Search in those directions to see what the world needs, see what you love to do, and make it happen.
Okay, great. I think we did a great interview, and I'm really happy to meet you guys and see you, and hopefully we will get the chance to meet again while you are somewhere in the world, or maybe here, I don't know. Let's see. Anyway, thank you guys for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video with us, and don't forget to follow them on their blog. I'll leave a link down below, and don't forget to like and subscribe and share the video if you think that it really benefits you, hearing from seniors who are traveling the world, who took a great decision And yeah, here we are. Thank you. Salam.